really concerned about the weather in South Bend. I'd like to say that off the start. Check. No need.
Okay, it's good.
It's cold.
Yeah, that's right. Speaking of weather, this is a little bit of a random question, but are you going to take one of those summer tours with the team this
We're
summer?
working on it, yes. That's our plan.
Do you have any like destinations in mind?
Looking at Vancouver,
That'd be cool.
playing the Canadian college teams.
Okay.
It's something I've done in the past, back towards Montreal and Ottawa. Obviously, Vancouver's closer. And I have a relationship with the president of British Columbia. He was the president of Cincinnati. And he's on a commission. He's on some sort of, say, you know, a lot smarter guys than me committee with Chancellor Block. But yeah, that's probably, it'd be, you know, obviously easier, quick flight. So try working on that for next August. It's not in stone yet, but that's what we're trying to do.
David's foot.
Hey, it looks good.
Probably
Looks good. I wish I recovered like some of these guys.
So he'll probably be able to go.
Yeah, I mean, knock on wood. Yeah, everybody's a go right now. Got a couple more practices. So hopefully nobody's head explodes during finals.
You saw what this team did in its first road game, true road game last year, because you were on the other side of it. What is the challenge of taking a young team on the road for the first time in a season?
That's all we talked about in practice today. That's my job. You've got to practice the next play. You can't let a snowball effect occur, which you saw last year. You saw it. So we got to practice staying together. You know what people don't know about me is that, you know, you watch me maybe coach like the Denver game. I know we're going to win, so I'm coaching that game like practice. You know, Saturday is a different story. You know, I got to keep these guys. I got to keep their head up. We got to keep our arms around each other. You got to stay together on the road. Because other than all the people I got coming from Cincinnati, that I'm bringing Bruin shirts. So we'll have a nice contingent of 20 or 30. You got, you know, it's just you and your bench when you're on the road. You know, you got to stay together. You know, I love it. You know, my dad tells me the greatest feat there'll ever be in my career. We won 8 straight road games in the Big East one time.
What year was that?
I can't remember. It's been 6, 7, 8 years, something like that. I mean, back in, you know, the real Big East.
And you know Notre Dame from the Big East.
Oh yeah, Mike and I are very close. We're both. I'm going to go recruiting Sunday. I need to call him because if we're going to the same place, we need to use his plane. We might be going to the same place, so I need to check with him on that. I forgot about that. I'm not coming back with the team, but yeah, I mean, he's a great friend of mine, great coach. They always lead the country or top 5 in fewest turnovers. All the way back to my Big East days. They always led the Big East in fewest turnovers. They just do a great job they play with great pace on offense. Nobody on their team does things they can't do. You know, the shooters shoot it, the point guard dribbles it, they hit the first open man. He's always just done an unbelievable job. I mean, we've actually, when we got out of leagues, and when the Big East broke up, Mike and I talked a lot, you know, about, you know, me with him about defense, him with me about my team that won here. I met with him a lot, you know, just talking about offense. So, I mean, we share, you know, share ideas, all that stuff. So they've always been great at that. So you can't turn the ball over because they're not going to turn it over. Notre Dame just doesn't turn it over.
They're a little bit of a team in flux right now. Coach said that it was his hardest week at Notre Dame last week with the Maryland and then the BC game. They had a player transfer, a player who lost for a season-ending surgery or injury. So what are you seeing with them right now? I know they had a good game against Detroit Mercy and hit a ton of threes the other night or last night. But
yeah, you know, I'm a big believer sometimes that adversity, all as brutal as it is, it can help you. Because it brings the, you know, I went through it in 2011. We had a melee with the crosstown team, and you know, we went to the Sweet 16. You know, played for the Big East championship. You know, sometimes it can bring you close. Good coaches use it to bring their team closer together, and Mike's an elite coach, so it didn't surprise me watching them last night. that, you could just see that the guys that are there, how much they banded together. You could just see their mojo was different. I understand that Detroit's struggling, but they looked like a different team. So I think they used it to their advantage for sure. It's just a long year. I think, he's a really good coach. He's got some veteran guys they should have beat BC probably, but other than that, they've all lost. Maryland's top 5. They lose at Maryland, you lose at Carolina in a tough one. The game they could have won if Cole Anthony doesn't start impersonating LeBron James. If you saw it, Miami, it was crazy. So they could have won that game. So they're probably one game off where they should be.
A bunch of guys here played against Notre Dame last year.
Yeah.
What have you talked to them about from that game? Jalen Hill, the defense at the end, anything that you picked up from them?
Nah, not a whole lot. We don't talk. We don't talk a lot about last year, and we won't do that once we get to the Pac-12 either. I think it's just a totally different game. You get different coaches, you get different players. We're just, we're so different than these guys were last year that there's not a whole lot of a point in it. I think, for us, it's more talking about our road game, good team. Notre Dame needs a win because they gave one up. They probably regret against BC. So we're going to get their best shot. So we got to be ready.
What does it mean to you kind of be a part of this rivalry now?
Oh, it's cool. Yeah, it's cool. So, when it was a real rivalry, I'm going to brag, I was still young, not that old. Not as young as you, but I don't quite remember. When was the upset? What year was that?
74?
74.
Yeah, I was 3. So, the era where the throwback game of it was the game. I was still kind of young, but it's cool. Obviously you got both of our universities are world renowned universities. They're not just national universities. Both our universities are world renowned. So it's extremely good. And Mike and I have talked. Trying to keep the series going is tough because we're going to 20 games and they're in 20 games. But I'd like to find a way to try to keep it going as much as we can.
With the pulling guys out of games, is there a kind of a balancing act between teaching them, like the quick hooks for mistakes?
Oh,
is there a balancing act between
yeah.
teaching and not rattling confidence?
Yeah, what I would tell you is you'll get to know me. Like I tell you, coaching did that. First of all, Jalen Hill takes him. He's walking off the court because he knows he's got his 4th foul with 12 minutes to play. He's smart.
Yeah.
He's taking himself out.
Right.
He's got a guy who knows he knew he had 3.5. He knows he just got his 4th and there's 12 minutes on the clock. People talk about guys just walking to the bench because he made a mistake. But he didn't make a mistake. He fouled. He fouled. When there's 12 minutes left, the guy knows Cody fouls. He knows he's got his 4th. Yeah, people get used to that. But there's times where you're practicing, like I told you, certain game, early season games. I'm coaching the game more like it's a practice because you're trying. What you got to try to do, like play like Prince, misses a layup and then immediately fouls the guy 86 feet from the basket. I need to take him out right away and explain to him and the team, we're going to win anyway. That, you can't do that at Notre Dame. That could cost us the game.
Yeah.
Whether it's this team, we're so young. We are not talented enough to overcome, mistakes, whatever you want to call them, bonehead plays. You pick your adjective, foul, whatever you want to call foul 86 feet from the basket, whatever you want to call a player getting a technical foul. It already cost us one game. Cody knows it. He was in my office the next day almost crying. He's searching me out to apologize. He didn't sleep. But we got to grow up. They care. It's my job. So it's my job to teach them. There's certain things that are going to get us beat in a real game. So there's so it's totally different in a game like at Denver, where I'm pretty confident we're going to be okay.
I noticed some guys come out and sit in the chair between coaches.
Yeah, it's teaching.
And Lewis, teaching chair, and they're kind of talking to them.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's your job, teaching guys. And people probably make too much of that. Oh, you know, it's funny, you know, it's funny in coaching, you know, some people, it's like, well, you got to make them accountable, and you make them accountable, and some people, well, it's too hard on them. So when you have my job, you got to realize that there'll always be scrutiny in how you do your job, you know. But it doesn't bother me, because one thing I can tell you is I know I'm not perfect, and I know. But you try to teach. You never want to take guys' confidence, because there's a time you do have to make a point. Okay, but there's other times it's like you can't take a guy out. You got nobody to put in.
Right.
So there's a lot going on, you know, people are watching, they're trying to analyze, and, you know, I get it. You know, everybody with ESPN's a coach now. I mean, it just is what it is. But, you know, the guys, one thing you'll learn from our guys right away, you know, they know I care about them more as a person than as a player. So that you know, doesn't mean I'm right the way we do things. I'm well aware of that. I'm always analyzing, you know, what you should have done.
Last question.
The three, sorry.
Go ahead.
The three-point percentage is now 30.9%.
Yeah, we got to get that up. Some of that's shot selection, some of it's youth. You know, Prince has gotten off to a tough start. You know, I've been working with him a lot on squaring up. You know, some of it is our shot selection, some of it's law of averages. I mean, you want a stat that's really driving you nuts. Look at our opponent's free throw percentage. It's ungodly. What is it?
74.3.
It's unbelievable. Yeah. Can't defend that, but
yeah.
You know, so some of it evens out over the year. But shot selection's part of it. You know, we get younger team, we get a little bit of a hurry at times.
Yes. How do you get your team to play 40 minutes of defense, especially?
I got that answer. Get them to next year. You know, so it's funny, you know, Mike Bray and I used to talk. We were friends for years, but back when we were in the Big East, and I had to rebuild. We were young, and he just said, minutes played. I said, what do you mean? Until Tiger Campbell's and Jalen Hill's, till they get minutes played in real games and learn how to play through it and learn how to play 40 minutes. It's hard. There is no magic potion. And then while they're young, though, sometimes you got to use trickery. You got to change. Trickery would be changing defenses. Anything you can do to maybe hide their youth, to try to steal wins. But the true answer is to get them to be a year older, get them to have experience. Inexperienced players get tired and they struggle to sustain. It's hard for young teams to impose their will on older teams. It's just a fact. You know, college basketball, you better be really super talented or you better be older. At the high level, because I coached it, you know, we're in the Pac-12 now. I was in the Big East back with Mike, and I was like, he used to tell you, I remember my third year and we were really young. He said, you're going to be really good. And I said, really? He goes, yeah, but not till next year. And he said, these guys need minutes played. So we just got to stick with it, you know, and it's my job to get them through it as much as I can get them through it. But that's just our reality. And that's just where we're at.
Yeah, it seems like this team over the past few years, even though you weren't here, they always had problems defending the three.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, I would say, man, look, the stats would have problems defending everything. You know, we're getting there. You know, our talk's getting better. Our attitude is correct about it. You know, the biggest thing you got to teach young guys is how to take a punch and keep fighting. Because what happens is young guys, their body language, and then it becomes instead of a 2-point run for the other team, it's a 10-point run. You got to learn how to stop a run. You know, you can't get down on ourselves. We can't. You know, that's what we're practicing. We're actually practice that.
How do you
Last question.
How do you practice that?
You talk about it as coaches, and as we're in drills, you force them to talk. You force them to, hey, Ben, you know, get your, you got beat, next play, Ben, let's go score on them. You know, to be cognizant of it. That we're not going to win at Notre Dame. We're not going to go in there and go rah-rah and win by 20. It just doesn't happen. So we got to know it's going to be a dogfight. We got to make it a dogfight. and try to steal a win and get on the plane. And the only way we can do that is that just, we're not going to fall apart. We're not going to fall apart and turn it over. We're not going to let each other hang our heads. We're not going to let each other do that. It starts with me. You know, it starts with our coaching staff. You got to practice it. I mean, you know, you got to know, you got to practice. It's going to be hard to win. So let's know it. Let's accept it. Let's figure it out. We got to stay together. So it's just, you know, the way we work on things. But the guys, their want-to is there. It's just going to be a process all year for us. You know, that's the hardest part. But I think we got some of them. You got anybody, Alex?
Yeah.
There's Prince.
Thanks, Coach.
All right, guys.
Thank you.